Before we start, I have to give credit where credit is due on the videos that I used on here. The first going to CCTV and the second and third going to AJ Plus. I really like AJ Plus. Their content is amazing. With that said, let's go on. Shouts to the master teacher, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, who's probably among the first people, if not the first, to write about this particular subject that I'm going to be talking about. He has a book called They Came Before Columbus, which talks about Black Mexicans and blacks that pretty much came over to America before Columbus. And, what he says about Mexico is included. Talks about the Olmecs and all that. I didn't go into that kind of detail on my video, but I thought I would just give him a shout out anyway because he was the first to talk about this particular subject matter in specifics. So check out the book that came before Columbus if you haven't already. Another shout out is a hero of mine by the name of Joel A. Rogers. He's the one that got me into studying black ethnicities and black root in other ethnicities with his books Sex and Race, volumes 1, 2, and 3. With that said, let's go further. I heard a few YouTubers say that they never heard of a black Mexican before, and I thought I would make this video because of that. We're everywhere. But yeah, this is a video about people that are black of Mexican descent, and there's a whole history behind it. One thing that I'm going to say also is that Mexico, that word in Mexican comes from the tribe of the Mexica. It's not just like a name of a place, they're actually a people. It was actually a tribe that were of Aztec descent. They were native people that lived there. What people might call the Native American Indians. That's who they were for that region. And that's where the term and the name comes from. They tried to name it New Spain, but obviously the name didn't take. It kind of reminds me of what the land of Haiti or Haiti was when they tried to, when the colonizers tried to rename it. I heard that it was actually the original name for that region. And it's the same for Mexico, but I will even say even more so, it's the tribe that it was named after, the Mexica. It's a Nahuatl word from what I understand. That's a whole nother subject. Well, hope you guys will learn something from this and enjoy it. Peace.
People of African descent go back hundreds of years in Mexico, but as a group, Afro-Mexicans are largely invisible. A 2015 census is changing that. CCTV's Frank Contreras has insight from Mexico's southern state of Oaxaca.
The presence of Africa here in Oaxaca state is one of the lesser known aspects of the vast cultural diversity in this region, one of the most culturally diverse in all of Latin America. Last year, for the first time, the government conducted an interim census asking Mexicans, based on your culture, history, and traditions, do you consider yourself black, meaning Afro-Mexican or Afro-descendant? And nearly 1.4 million people responded, yes. Afro-Mexican communities exist here in Oaxaca state's Costa Chica region, the neighboring state of Guerrero, and Veracruz state, among others. An Afro-Mexican leader from Pinotepa Nacional says, as a nation, Mexico is much more than just a mixture of Spanish and indigenous people.
We believe that the whole world should know that in the colonial era, Mexico was an entry point for African slaves. Our ancestors were forcibly brought here under slavery.
But images of African descendants in Mexico rarely appear in public. The exception is this famous comic book character, Memín Penguin, which was created in the 1940s. Nicomedes Ramirez and her cousin, Castula Silva, grew up in these impoverished coastal communities. Ramirez says over the years, politicians have come with their election year promises to end poverty.
They told us they would help, and they would bring us basic things we were lacking. All we had to do was ask, but so far, they have done nothing for us.
I never went to school because when I was a girl, there was no school here. We had to go to another community, and my parents, may they rest in peace, told me I could not go, so I never studied.
Afro-Mexican communities are almost completely separated from the rest of Mexico, and very few outsiders ever come here for a first-hand look at their most well-known traditions, like this dance known as a chilena. Or this one, depicting a charging bull. Mexico's national constitution is the only one in Latin America that does not specifically mention the existence of citizens of African descent. Afro-Mexican authorities say they're planning to take legal action and change the constitution so that it includes them.
By having no presence in the Mexican Constitution, there is no public policy that protects our rights and necessities. We, as Afro-Mexicans, like many indigenous Mexicans, live in regions of extreme marginalization.
Constitutional recognition would finally give them access to medical services, educational grants, and social security benefits. For now, Afro-Mexicans, whose descendants came from places like Kenya, the Congo, and later the Caribbean, still do not enjoy these basic rights. Frank Contreras, CCTV, on the Costa Chica in Mexico's southern state of Oaxaca.
Son del noroeste de África. Nosotros elegimos esa región porque nos dimos cuenta a través del internet que los esclavos que fueron extraídos de allá llegaron hasta acá, a nuestro pueblo, a Collantes, y entonces empezamos a indagar y retomamos esas danzas. Bailando porque intentamos dar a conocer nuestra cultura y a través del baile nosotros pretendemos invitar, atraer a los jóvenes para que se unan a nosotros y así consolidar nuestra cultura, consolidar nuestra propia identidad como pueblo negro. A mí me encantaría que los pueblos negros sean reconocidos para que con eso exista una igualdad de derechos y así que nosotros nos sintamos orgullosos de ser negros y que también lo transmitamos. Y pues así va a ser a todo dar porque vamos a estar contentos todos.
Was one of the names that they would call me. They would call me either Indian or they would say, "Are you Pocahontas?" But I was never just Mexican. Almost every weekend we get together. You'll find aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters, pretty much the whole community. We feel safe when we're together. We like the same music, we dance the same, we eat the same food, everybody's just there to have a good time. We don't get bad comments as, what are you, or we all know who we are. And we are who we are, and we just there to have fun. think when I was maybe 5, I remember I went in the shower and I started scrubbing really hard because I didn't think I was dark. I thought it was dirty. I love the fact that Afro-Mexicans are being acknowledged. My kids won't feel different. They'll know who they are since the beginning. They know that there is a culture, that there is Afro-Mexican, so they won't feel different. And all of our kids in our community will feel the same.
Para bailar la bamba se necesita una poca de gracia y otra cosita. Ahí arriba, arriba y arriba. Yo no soy marinero, pero ti seré.
You guys know what this song is. In case you don't, this is La Bamba, made famous by the Chicano Mexican rocker Richie Valens. May he rest in peace and his memory be eternal. The roots of this song actually come from Afro-Mexicans. And even the title alone harkens to Africa itself. Bamba was a town in the Congo, from what I understand, what I've read. Also, when people think of this song, it's known as a son jarocho. Son jarocho. Son jarocho basically is people of Veracruz. The son is whenever you hear the term son, it's like it has something to do with music. But this is a song particular to Veracruz. And even in tradition, it's very African. The way that it's conjugated. There's a lot of improvisation that's going on that you probably wouldn't be aware of because it's just executed so perfectly. Listen to that finger picking. It sounds like kora music of West Africa if you listen to the way that he's finger picking. But yes, this is la son jarocho. You hear that? Particularly from Veracruz. Afro-Mexicans. This song is from that root. Very traditional, very African traditional, and very Afro-Mexican traditional. There's those roots.
Para bailar la bamba se necesita una poca de gracia y otra cosita. Allá arriba y arriba y arriba. Yo no soy marinero, pero sí sé.
One of many examples of Afro-Mexican contribution is this dish right here. This is jollof rice. Now, many of you probably know this is Spanish rice. That's incorrect. This is jollof rice from Senegambia in Africa, from the Wolof tribe. I think that's why it's called jollof, because it rhymes with Wolof. I don't know the whole story behind it, but I wouldn't be surprised. This rice is the bomb. I've had it, at family functions, like family members like my dad and my sister. I think my aunt has even made this, but I don't know if they knew that it was from Africa. The first time I found out that this particular rice was from Africa was when I went to a Nigerian restaurant. I dig Nigerian food a lot. If you guys have never tried it, you need to get on that. You will be full. Trust me, you will have food for days. It's so hearty. But yeah. And then I found out also that certain parts of Africa make their jollof rice different than other parts that serve this particular rice. A woman that I picked up when I was doing Uber and Lyft expressed that to me. She told me that where she is from, that they make their rice better than the Nigerians do. I don't know. I forget where this woman was from, though, to be honest. But yeah, man. Jollof rice is from Senegambia, from the Wolof tribe, and it made its way to Mexico via African descent people there. Another contribution of Afro-Mexicans is this drink right here, Jamaica. This is a drink made out of hibiscus flowers. It's like a tea. You could basically, it's like you brew it as a tea, and then you put like ice and sugar in it if you'd like. The first time I ever had it was in a Mexican restaurant, and it's still one of my favorite drinks. But upon going to a Jamaican restaurant, I noticed it there, and then I'm like, huh, that's why they call it Jamaica, because basically this is a Jamaican drink. And then, well, it's funny, the Jamaicans will call it sorrel, and that's like what they call this drink. And upon going to a Nigerian restaurant and seeing this drink available as sorrel, I noticed like, huh, wow, maybe this is where it came from. And actually it did. The original name for the drink is called Zobo, and it's made out of hibiscus flowers. And yes, this is an African drink. It was rooted in Africa, and it's brought throughout the Caribbean and into Mexico. Yeah, this is another of a bunch of Afro-Mexican contributions. This is a seal of the founders of LA, or pobladores of Los Angeles, the townspeople of LA. And LA is very diverse. Los Angeles, I'm talking about, and it had a diverse beginning, with a majority of that beginning being of Afro-Mexican descent. I'll show you a census. Check this out. Here's a census of the very first people of Los Angeles from 1781. 1. Peninsular, Spanish, born in Spain. 1. Criollo, Spaniard, born in New Spain. And that's what they called Mexico, or any place that they colonized, as far as the Spaniards colonizing. I mean, of course, it didn't stick with Mexico because they used the tribal name of a certain tribe of Aztec people from Mexico to call it what it is now. 1 mestizo, mixed Spanish and Indian. 2 negros. I don't like using the term negros for blacks, but I'm just reading this. Blacks of full African ancestry. 8 mulattoes, Spanish mixed with black. 9 indios, American Indians, basically. So we see pretty much 10 adults with African roots in this, as being the early settlers of Los Angeles, California. And they're of Afro-Mexican origin. They came from Mexico. So there we go. The African presence in Mexico is a subject often denied, but people of African descent have influenced every aspect of Mexican life. Writer, scholar Jamila Mohammed, in a heritage report published by the minority rights group International, up to 75% of all Mexicans today have some African ancestry. Yet, despite its obvious existence in many bloodlines, African heritage is excluded from the official definitions of what constitutes black and mestizo, or mixed race. Hundreds of thousands of slaves, mostly from West Africa, were brought to Mexico between 1519 and 1810. They helped the Spanish to explore and exploit the land during colonial times and communicate to the indigenous or with the indigenous tribes. The forced immigrants and their descendants, many whom married native Mexicans, also served a major role in the nation's fight for independence, along with their customs, beliefs, personal achievements, were woven into the fabric of the country. Africans made important contributions to Mexican folktales, religions, medicinal practices, cooking styles, and also most notably music and dance, Mohammed observes. She cites one of the examples of the hit folk song La Bamba, which dates to the 17th century when it was sung by members of an Angolan tribe that arrived in the slave port of Veracruz on the Mexican Gulf Coast. The links between the links between the African continent and Mexico are so widespread and so ingrained in modern day Mexican culture, it would be impossible to discuss them all in this single article. We actually went over La Bamba tune, so yeah, that's even more so. Check that out. I'm going to post the article to this too. The first Afro-Mexican cat that I met was in college. His name, he went by the name Black. He was a poet. And it threw me off at first. I was like, huh? Like when I was like, where are you from? He's all, I'm from Mexico. I'm like, huh? It blew my mind, man. He had a straight up big old natural, kind of like this kid right here. But he had more facial hair, and his hair was a little more frizzier than this cat, But his pic reminded me of this guy for some reason. I was just like, I'd never really heard of that before that. I tripped out, and the guy, he looks a little bit darker than this cat right here, but yeah, he was straight up Afro-Mexican. I have a friend who I actually really wanted to show, but it's hard to know when she's on the internet. She's kind of one of those chicks that really is not really into technology. I couldn't get a hold of her, and I didn't want to wait to do this video. But this is what she wrote me a long time ago. We're talking about just her roots. And she, from what I know, she lived in LA. She's back in Mexico right now. That's where she lives. But, she was telling me about like just her roots. And this is what I thought I would share with y'all. I'm an Afro-Mexican. I belong to that very small percentage of Mexicans that look black. These are some of the faces of Black Mexico. For the guys and girls that basically say that they've never seen any Black Mexicans, well, you can't deny it now because I'm showing you. Yes, these are brothers and sisters right here. Some of them probably look a little more Afro-Mestiza, and some of them look straight up African. But they're black. And a lot of these people are down with their African roots too. Here's some famous Afro-Mexicans. This is Vicente Guerrero. He's known to be the first black president. He also was an abolitionist, and he ended slavery in Mexico. This is Emilio Zapata, who was a revolutionary, and I've read that he actually was an Afro-Mexican himself, probably of Afro-Mestizo descent, but that's what I've read. Some people probably doubt this, but I've read this a few times. And of course, you could see his influence with the Zapatista ELZN movement, which is still going on. This is bass player Abraham Laborio, one of the best bass players ever. He is of Mexican descent. He's an Afro-Mexican. He's known for his bass playing. He's played with Al Jarreau. Who else? Madonna, of all people. He was in a fusion band called Koinonia as well. And a bunch of other artists that you guys know. I'm trying to remember them all. George Benson was another one that he played with, but there's a bunch of other ones too. And his family is famous for just their musicianship. This is Abraham Laborio's brother, the late um, Johnny Laborio, a Mexican rock singer from the 60s, from what I understand. Um, he passed away probably a few years ago, but he was very popular back then. These are Abraham Laborio's sons. Abe Jr., who's on the left, played with Paul McCartney and Seal, and Mateo Laborio on the right. I don't really know who he's played with, but those guys are like some phenomenal musicians. And yes, they are all Afro-Mexican. Pio Pico was another Afro-Mexican. He was the governor of California. And I think there's even a street named after him. I think Pico was named after him, actually. This is Kalimba, an Afro-Mexican star. He's like a pop star over there. And this is another revolutionary Afro-Mexican woman by the name of Colonel Carmen Amila Robles. Here is an American civil rights leader who was of Afro-Mexican descent as well. His name is Mario Marcel Salas. This is Gaspar Yanga. This man right here, he pretty much was like, I mean, he not only revolted against the colonial Spanish rule, he founded an African township. And a lot of what you saw in the films were a representation of what he founded. And those people were the descendants of that township in Veracruz. So it's like, yeah, you know, like Gaspar Yanga, definitely a hero. And of course, last but not least, the most famous Afro-Mexican is Lupita Nyong'o. Yes, I know she's of Kenyan descent, and she didn't come to Mexico the same way that many Africans that I've been talking about did. She was born and naturalized there, and she is the most famous Black Mexican, even though her situation is a lot more different. You know, it's like basically somebody from Africa being born over here in North America. I understand that. But I'll just say for the record, even though, you know, she definitely is a recent immigrant, or actually she was born there. Her parents are more recent immigrants. That she's the most famous Afro-Mexican. Well, I hope this was something beneficial. If you knew, fine, and if you didn't know, I hope it added a lot. Let's not ignore this, because Afro-Mexicans have been ignored for centuries. And finally, people are starting to know more about them. African people are everywhere. African descent people are everywhere. We're everywhere. Yes, we are. Have a nice day. I hope everything's cool with you. Peace. Peace to your life.